What's going on, people? Today we're going to be talking about champion gear. Now, not just champion gear, but also gear progression, what to upgrade, when to upgrade, etc. And I'm just going to be basing this off of my experience with champion gear. I think I've built enough pieces at this point to kind of know the things that I kind of regretted doing or putting off, or the things that I actually really was glad that I did. And then we'll talk about what you should be focusing on. But again, this will be going off of my experience. So if somebody else did it differently and it's working for them, etc., that's fine too. At the end of the day, champion gear is champion gear. They're all good, but depending on what pieces you choose, that could have some very good effects or maybe not so great. So you gotta be smart into how you go ahead and build the pieces that you do and which ones. That's also very important. Now, the thing about champion gear is that it is very expensive. So first of all, if you are not already using something that will make it a little bit easier for you to save some money while you buy some packs, well, this is where the sponsor of the video comes in. Now, with the Amazon Appstore, you're able to get some Amazon coins, and then those coins you can use to purchase packs. Now, the great thing is that with this, you can get special offers like 20% off with the Amazon coins. So if you're going to be getting these packs, etc., or you plan to get some stuff in the future, then if you haven't already, getting these 20% off will be super beneficial, especially in the long run. Now, I have gotten some questions as far as how to get to use it, etc. So here we go. First of all, go ahead and click on the link that's going to be down in the description and in the comment section. That's going to take you to a place that you can go ahead and download the Amazon Appstore. Now, once you download the Amazon Appstore, you then must download Lords Mobile directly from the Amazon Appstore. What that's going to do is going to give you two Lords Mobile apps. The one that you normally have, and then the one that you downloaded through the Amazon Appstore. The one that you want to launch is the one that you downloaded through the Amazon Appstore. Once you do that, then you can go ahead and connect your account through like Facebook, etc. And then once you're in your account, if you're using the right Lords Mobile that you downloaded from the Amazon Appstore, then when you go and buy packs, you'll see the Amazon coins. So, and that's where you go ahead and you purchase the bundles and save your 20%, etc. So if you haven't already, make sure that you're checking out Amazon Appstore. Like I mentioned, the link is going to be down in the description, and 20% off of packs, especially if you buy things daily. So again, if you want to take advantage of the 20% off, especially on these new bundles that are coming out, because we don't know how long they're going to be around, make sure that you're using Amazon Appstore. The links is going to be down in the description. And thank you to the Amazon Appstore for being the sponsor of the video. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the gear, because generally speaking, when you're going to be starting off your champion gear, etc., and you're at the top of your game before champion, this is what your gear is going to be looking like, generally speaking, right? So you have to make a couple of decisions first, like what gear do I want to make, what pieces do I want to make. But the first and number one thing that you have to ask yourself is, are you going to be using champion accessories, and are you going to be going for them? Because the answer to that question might change the pieces that you actually are working with. If you're going to be saying no to that question, right? Let's say that no, champion accessories is just too expensive, not going to go with that, I'll just use my cups, which is fair play, right? We're going to go with the assumption right now that you're just going to be using the cups. You're not going to be worried about the champion accessories, right? So what does that mean? First of all, your 3 accessory slots are already locked. That means you're also going to be already very infantry range heavy. So the number one item that I would choose for you guys to start with is the champion stride, the infantry legs. Now you might be wondering, well, if I'm using the cups and it's infantry and range heavy, why am I going with the infantry legs? Well, there's a couple of reasons why. The infantry legs is going to be the highest priority, because the other option is the storm tassets. But the issue with the storm tassets is that they are fairly expensive, if not just as expensive to make than the champion stride, which is crazy to say, but it is true. Unless you're just going to be doing hunt buses and all that, but I don't even know if there is hunt buses for this item anymore. It's gonna be rough, and it is very, very expensive. So instead of getting this into Mythic, you might as well get the Champion Stride to Mythic. It's the cheapest champion item to start with. And at that point, once you go ahead and you make your Champion Stride, that's going to give you an idea of what you can expect for other champion items. Okay, the Champion Stride was 5, this one is 8, or this one is 7. You, in your head, you have an idea of how much is generally going to cost you if you want to do that, etc., etc., right? Now, the other option in this case would be the Champion Boots or the Champion Greaves, which is just the range and the cavalry equivalent. Now, the reason I don't say those specifically is because if you go with the Champion Boots, which is a very big upgrade from the Dragon's Talon, right? The issue with that is that the chest that we're going to be using is also very range heavy. And so your range stats would just be through the roof, and you don't really want that. And the Champion Greaves, also very solid, but not that much better than a Gargantuan Belt. And so I wouldn't recommend it as your first item as far as for the leggings. Now in the future, if you want to go back and circle back and get these, by all means. But as your first one, I will recommend the Champion Stride. Now, let's go ahead and get to that chest piece, because the chest piece is the most expensive one outside of the accessory. But from my experience, I regretted doing the chest last. The chest is so freaking nice to have, even just at gold. There's a couple of reasons why we want to go with the range piece also. Number one, a lot of people will already have the firewall plate, and as you guys can tell, the firewall plate is very good with infantry and cavalry. What is it missing altogether? You guessed it, ranged. There's also another thing with the ranged chest. The HP that you receive is much higher than the other two choices, so that's another factor. Now, once you go ahead and knock out the armor as your second item that you build, which is what I would suggest. I know the most, you go from the least expensive to the most expensive. That kind of sucks, but trust me when I tell you that it is going to be very, very beneficial. And once you're done with this, the other one comparatively will be much, much easier. So we're gonna go ahead and pick this, and now you must be thinking, okay, well look, I have my cups infantry range, I have the infantry legs, and I have the range chest. I am infantry heavy as hell. I am range heavy as hell. What do I do? Well, if you're in this stage right here and you don't have much cav, what you can do is you can change out the winter mitts, at least for the moment, for a dragon's fist, and that's perfectly fine. Now, what I would suggest going with next is going to be your helmet, and this is where you will address your lack of cavalry. Now, going from the Bumble Helm to the Champion Helm is going to be a very nice increase in cavalry stats, in HP, etc. And it's a very, very good upgrade. Now, the reason we're choosing this helmet specifically is, once again, this helmet gives higher HP stats than the other helmets comparatively. So if I take a look at this one gives me 64.7%. while this one gives me 21.7% less. Now, of course, it does give me some more attack, but you also are lacking quite a bit of calf stats, so you have to keep that in mind, and this is the way that we go about it. Not only is this helm going to be taking care of your lack of calf stats, it's also going to be adding quite a bit of army HP, so it's a great all-around helmet. I will not tell you that the Champion Visor is a bad helm. It's definitely not, but the problem with that is that if you go with the champ helm, the visor, right, then you're really lacking cavalry, and so I don't recommend it, at least as your first helmet. I would choose a champion helmet at first, and then later on, once you finish the set that you're happy with, then you can start tinkering with other items. So you got your boots, you got your chest, now you got your helmet. What do you get next? The next one that I would suggest to you will be the offhand, and the offhand specifically will be the Champion Light. Now, the Champion Light is infantry and cavalry, and the reason we're doing this is because, remember, you are lacking a bit of cavalry still, so the Champion Light will take care of that. And as well as it does have some infantry stats, which is nice because the next item is going to be kind of swaying it back into the cavalry slot. And the reason also why this is the best offhand to go with is because if you go with the champion Qatar, it does have higher cavalry, true, but the secondary stat is going to be range. And if you go with that, then your range stats is just going to be a little too high. And so the champion light is the best kind of offset to that. Now, and then of course, the last item that we're going to go with, I know that a lot of people might want to make the main hand first and whatnot, but honestly, if you take a look at the stat comparison and how many stats you gain per item when you're going from the top level 60 gear to champion items, the main hand is actually one of the ones that you're gaining the least amount of stats in, just because the Skull Crusher is really freaking good. So I would recommend the main hand being the last upgrade that you do, and in that upgrade it's going to be the champion edge. Now the champion edge, once again, is going to be heavy on the cav, and it's also going to be nice with the army attack. So this is the set that you see quite a lot of people use when they're using cups. There's a reason for that. If you take a look at this set, now of course this is not going to be the best because I don't have them jeweled the way that I would want it in this case, but right here, if you take a look at this set, right now, of course, if I add a little bit different jewels, what you would essentially end up with is a decent set that you can run 4-4 or 4-4-2 depending on how you jewel it. Now of course that's going to be more of a preference thing. I'm not going to tell you that one is better than the other, but depending on how you jewel this, you can dictate whether you can go 4-4 or you can go 4-4-2. And also remember, the comp 4-4-2 or 4-2-4, a lot of people fall into this trap that it's like, oh man, my range is way too high or way too low, etc. But you can play around with that with your jewels, and especially your infantry and cav. Those you can mess around with, and you can do different comps without having to change the stats too much, because at the end of the day, the gear, the max HP, etc. is what really going to set you apart. But this set is a very universal known set, and that is why it works well with the 3 cups. It has 2 items that are very heavy cav, and then you also have the offhand that's also cav. And then if you jewel all the other items like the chest, like the boots, etc., if you jewel that cav as well, all of a sudden your cav doesn't look that bad. Also, you don't necessarily need to make the stats even. I know a lot of people that also love to just, oh, you know, my cavalry is a little too low. Sometimes that's okay. You don't have to even out your stats. You don't have to wear a random piece that's like super cav heavy just because your cav is just a little lower than your infantry in range. You don't have to worry about that. But this is the set that I generally would suggest if you are going with the 3 cups. Now, like I mentioned before, the other items like the champion blade, the visor, there's a lot of different items that are very good. The other boots. But if you choose those items over some of these items that I'm showing you right now, like if you go, instead of this, if you go champion blade, perfectly acceptable, but then your infantry and your range is definitely going to be super high, and then you kind of lose the ability to do like a 4-2-4 because your cav is going to be way too low always, and your range is going to be way too high always. So these other items you want to start building when you actually start having other sets that you want to do, when you want to do other formations, etc. So if you go champion visor as well right here, then this would be a very strong like 9-9-2 set, 4-4-2, etc. And that's just with switching 2 items. But if this is what you initially start with, you see how you're kind of stuck with infantry range and no cav? You're kind of stuck with 4-4-2 and you become predictable. So that's something you don't want. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the accessories, because if all of this didn't really suit what you are generally looking for, and you are going to be using accessories, there's a couple of things that I want to say about the accessories, right? First of all, there are 3 accessories that you can play with, as we all know. There are the champion faith, the champion Valor, and then the champion Blessing. Now, out of all of these, there is one that I would not recommend you build until you have like a lot of champion pieces and you're just trying to min-max, and that is the champion Blessing. The champion Blessing, again, it's an accessory champion item, so you cannot say it's a bad item because the stats are amazing, it's great, understandable. The only problem with the champion Blessing, right, especially if you're somebody with 3 cups, it's giving you the same stats that the cups would give you. The only difference is that it does bump up the HP a bit, but it is infantry range, so it's not giving you much different choices. So in my opinion, for the people that have made the champion Blessing as one of their 3 accessories and they only have the 3, they probably come to regret it later, maybe months down the line, etc. And they see like, man, if I had 3 accessories that were Cav, I wouldn't have to build like an extra accessory that's for Cav and have this champion Blessing that's just a better cup while I'm not really using my cup anymore. It's like, a champion Blessing is just not an accessory that I would recommend unless you already have 3 champion accessories that have cavalry on it. With that said, that basically leaves us with the champion Faith and the champion Valor. Now, the champion Faith is the most popular one because it gives you infantry and cavalry. And as you guys know, infantry and cavalry are some of the more popular blasts, first of all. And also, 4-4 is very, very popular. That's when you have more infantry and more cav in your rally. So therefore, the champion Faith becomes very, very good. The champion Valor, on the other hand, also has cavalry, but it has ranged attack. Now, the champion Valor was kind of the one that was secondary. Everybody wants to rock the champion Faith, but as you guys have seen as of late, there are other comps that are very, very strong, like a 055 or like a 794, etc., that will counter things like a 208, a 055, etc. And the champion Valor is perfect for that. So in this case, the way that I went ahead and did it, I went with 2 champion Faiths in 1 champion Valor. The reason I did that is I went with the 2 champion Faiths because that's gonna be the best that I can do with infantry cav, and then the champion Valor because you also get that cavalry stat that you want in your accessory, but it switches it up into range. That way I have more to play with as far as my accessories, my stats. It's not gonna be so heavy infantry cav, and so that's what I went with. 2 Faiths, 1 Valor. Do I sometimes wish I had 3 Faiths instead? Yes. Do I sometimes love that I have the champion Valor instead of a Faith? Yes. So it's one of those that's like there will be times where you wish you had the other, and there will be times where you would love to have the one that you have. The only time I can say that I've never really wished I had anything was the champion Blessing. There has been not one time that I'm like, man, I wish I had a champion Blessing. Because I already kind of do, and that's the cups. The cups, yes, are a little bit weaker, but man, the flexibility that having 3 champion cav accessories gave me it's close to none other, really. It's really, really good. And so what that ends up doing for me, right, is that 4-4, guess what I'm doing? I have my 3 accessories. It works well with 4-4. Want to take a look? 4-4. I'm using my 3 cav accessories and look at my stats. 139, 287, 323. Again, infantry, cav, heavy. And of course that can be changed a bit depending on how I jewel it. So if I want a little bit more infantry, I'll just change 1 jewel around, etc. But you get the point. So in this case, I also have a 4-4-2 set. And guess what? I'm using the same accessories for 4-4-2. Don't need a blessing either. Take a look at this. 4-4-2. And if you take a look at the stats, infantry 343, range 311, cavalry 123. And I don't have to worry about having a blessing or a cup, etc. because it just works, right? So the only thing I would say about the accessories is that the blessing, you're gonna feel like it's a curse if you build it as one of your first accessories. Now, if you build your 3 cav accessories and then after that you want to build a blessing, go for it. It is what it is. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the items that I did not really mention, and that is let me go ahead and go to the champion items. Right, there's a couple of items that every time people see them, they're like, well, why did you build that? And it's not because they're bad items. They're not. It's just, if you build these items, a lot of times the stat distribution of the item is a little iffy with the comps. So therefore, it's like, if you build it, that's cool. But as your first one in that slot, I don't know if I would have done that. Number 1, the Champion Greatsword. It's a great item, cavalry range though. And remember, in your main hand, you wanted cavalry stats. You didn't want cavalry range stats. So that's why the Champion Edge is so much better, because it has high cavalry attack and it's got nice army attack to add on to it. Whereas the Champion Greatsword, it's great, but the stat distribution is just not very good for 4-2-4 or 4-4-2. So you're just kind of in limbo. This is the one main hand that you will see the least. You will barely see it. And the only people that are glad that they have it will probably be the people that would run a 0-5-5. Because this is the perfect weapon for a 0-5-5. Better than the Champion Edge, even. But it would be very niche. It'd be for like one comp, and I don't know if it's worth it. Now, after you build your initial set, if you want to build that, all for it, but as your first item, it's a tough sell just because of the stat distribution on it. The other one, of course, it's going to be the Champion Armet. This is again a helmet that it might be the best looking helmet. I mean, it's up there. It's a really nice helmet, but again, the stat distribution is a little iffy because it's cavalry range, and you might be thinking, well, damn, cavalry range. What's wrong with cavalry range? Since you are building infantry range cups, and you're going to be using infantry legs, range chest, you want those the main hand and the helm, to give you as much cavalry stats as you want. And if you choose Champion Armet because it has cavalry, that's fine, but then your range is just going to be skyrocketing, and your stats are going to be crazy. For 4-4-2, your cavalry stats is probably going to be too high. And then for a 4-2-4, your range stats are probably going to be too high. So therefore, these two items don't really see the light of day, right? It's just the stat distribution, not the greatest. The other item that you don't see often is the Champion Qatar. Does anybody want to guess? Yes, it's cavalry ranged. And once again, it kind of clashes with the stats. Now, the Champion Qatar is used a lot for cavalry blasts, and that's perfectly fine, and that's because the cavalry attack is very, very high, and the other items don't really fall into that category as far as for like a cavalry blast. The Champion Light is probably going to be the one that you see the most, even in cavalry blast now, because of 208. It's what's being run more than just straight cavs. But the Champion Qatar is very niche uses for like a cav blast, etc. And so, as you can tell, the cavalry range items are the ones that are used the least. So try to stay away from those, at least as your first item, okay? But at the end of the day, there is also this the Champion Mail. I almost forgot about the Champion Mail. The Champion Mail is the armor, the infantry armor equivalent of everything else. And the problem with the Champion Mail, right, even more than the Champion, how do I say this? Kuiras? I don't know how to say that, right? But this Champion armor, which is for cavalry, is a very strong armor, best for cavalry, etc. The only issue with this one is that it's very, very close to a firewall plate, and thus it's like it's not really worth building this if you have the firewall plate, because even though it's better, it ain't that much better, right? So as building this as your first champion armor while you have the firewall plate, it's just redundancy of stats, right? The other issue is the Champion Mail. Champion Mail is a nice infantry piece, but unfortunately, there are other pieces that are almost just as good. Again, firewall plate, has nice infantry stats, cavalry stats, etc. So it's very comparable to this. Not better, but it's comparable. So it's like, am I really getting that much better? And that's why the champion plate is just the right answer, because firewall, it's got infantry cav. Champion plate has the range that you're missing from the other item. The champion mail also is just not as good as some other things. So if you take a look at the terror shield, gives you 49% infantry attack, 35% HP, army HP 21%. So technically, it's giving you what, 56% HP, 49% infantry attack. You compare it to the champion mail that it's giving you what, 56 attack and only 21 HP. For blast, I'm taking the terror shield over it, and so it's just not as great as far as stat distribution, and that's something that you need to learn with the champion sets. All of the items are good. No one will tell you that a champion item is bad, but you have to keep in mind the stat distribution. Don't go in blind building pieces without thinking about the long-term stat that you're going for, right? If you're going for 442, build it as such. If you're going for 424, build it as such. But don't just build an item and then like, oh man, now that I built this, now I'm a little bit too high on this. You plan it out long term, right? So that's it. That's my tips. I know, I said the legs, chest, helm, offhand, main hand is the way that I would suggest you go about it. Now, of course, if you want to go about it a different way, you're not wrong, because this is just my opinion. Some of this, somebody else may say that, oh, I don't agree with that, and that's completely fine. You don't have to agree. You don't even have to follow anything that I'm saying here, okay? But given that I've built, 14 or 15 pieces of champion now, I'm letting you know the things that I kind of felt as I was building it, the things that I regretted doing, like leaving the armor for last, even though it was the most expensive. But it's like, once I got it, I'm like, damn, why did I leave this for last? This is one of the best ones. So yeah, either way, if you have any questions, for sure, leave it down in the comment section. Maybe we can keep talking about champion and we can help other people out that are trying to make their decisions. If you're trying to make some decisions on your champion items and you went through this whole video and you're still maybe like on the fence about something, put it down in the comment section and maybe we can all help you out and whatnot, give you our perspective and things of that nature. So hopefully I was able to help somebody that was still on the fence or something, or maybe wondering about something, or just now starting your champion journey. I probably won't be building much champion from now on because I feel okay with what I have now. And yeah, CAE is recruiting, so make sure that you check our board. LOF is also recruiting, so check the board there as well. We have kind of like a down 2 weeks coming up, if you don't count Emperor, that is, anyway. So that'll be a great time to hit us up, join the guild, get to know us and whatnot, and go from there. And again, thank you for the Amazon Appstore for sponsoring the video. Make sure that you check out the link down in the description if you haven't already. And yeah, appreciate you guys for coming through, and until later.